Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to our channel, The Forgotten Files. Also, drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from and what time it is. Alright, let's get started. They say that just before dawn on October 3rd, 1891, a man covered in mud, blood, and pine needles crawled out of the Ironwood Forest and collapsed at the feet of a preacher. His nails were torn off. His eyes were wide, too wide, like he had seen something old, something hungry. Before he died, he whispered 7 words no one in Ironwood ever forgot. We shouldn't have gone in after her. For more than a century, the town buried what happened that night. The search party, the girl, the forest that seemed to swallow sound. But recently, sealed county records and a collection of suppressed letters have resurfaced, revealing a version of events no history book ever dared include. What unfolded in Ironwood was not simply a manhunt. It was a reckoning, centuries in the making. And at the center of it all was a girl almost erased from memory. Tonight, we follow the trail the town tried to forget. Ironwood, Tennessee, late 19th century, a town carved out of timber profits and hymnal discipline. Churches outnumbered saloons 3-1. Every home looked identical, square, modest, whitewashed. But the forest to the east was different. It grew in thick pillars of ironwood trees that twisted like ribs around a body. Locals claimed the woods were older than scripture, a phrase whispered, never explained. Most families sent their children to the Ironwood Church Orphan Academy, run by Pastor Elias Brandt, an imposing, pale-eyed man whose sermons focused obsessively on purification. Under his watch, the town operated like a closed fist, tight, coordinated, and unyielding. Outsiders rarely stayed long. Then came Maybelle Carver. Maybelle was 14, recently orphaned, and black, a rarity in a town that survived by isolation and strict social control. She was taken into the academy as a matter of charity, though many suspected Brandt had other motives. Maybelle was quiet, perceptive, and carried a journal she guarded like a heartbeat. She sketched strange symbols, loops, spines, spirals resembling the ironwood trees. Some townspeople claimed the trees leaned toward her as she walked by. Children whispered that she could hear things no one else could, especially at night. 1 week before the incident, Maybelle told another girl that the forest was speaking again, louder now and closer. She vanished 2 days later. The search party formed before sunrise. Sheriff Holt, who drank scripture like water. Jacob Brandt, the pastor's son, ambitious and cruel. Silas Reed, a logger familiar with the forest's worst corners. Emery Cobb, a farmhand with a violent reputation. Dr. Lester Quinn, the town physician whose medical ethics were flexible. They claimed they were going to retrieve the lost girl. But witnesses said the men were armed, overarmed, and wore expressions of a grim purpose, not concern. Some heard Pastor Brandt assure them, "Bring her back before she calls something awake." It wasn't a rescue. It was containment. The Ironwood Forest didn't greet them, it absorbed them. The canopy above sealed like a lid, muting daylight. Sound died fast. Their voices seemed swallowed inches from their mouths. Silas Reed later described feeling watched, not by an animal, but by the forest itself. He said the trees seemed arranged, almost intentionally, creating paths that led somewhere specific, unavoidable. But the strangest detail came from Dr. Quinn's private journal. The trees are bleeding resin darker than pitch. It stains the air with sweetness that turns the stomach. Hours in, they found Maybelle's journal, pages open to a fresh drawing. The 5 men surrounded by trees shaped like twisted spines. Court documents sealed in 1924 reveal town officials had long known the forest wasn't safe after dark. Missing livestock, vanishing travelers, and auditory hallucinations were common. But the town buried every incident. Timber profits required silence. One sealed affidavit described a presence tied to early settlers, an entity worshipped, then feared, then imprisoned by ritual tradition. The ironwood trees were not natural. They were grown intentionally to bind something beneath the earth. And that something, they believed, was stirring. When the men camped, the forest changed again. Temperature dropped. Emery claimed the ground throbbed like a slow heart. In the night, Jacob Brandt woke screaming. He claimed a figure, small, barefoot, stood inches from him. She whispered, "You're already inside." But when they searched, no footprints, no disturbed leaves, nothing. The men argued whether to continue. Sheriff Holt insisted, "If she's not harmed yet, she will be soon. We finish this." But Silas whispered the thought none dared voice. "We're not alone out here." At dawn, they found trees marked by symbols identical to Maybelle's sketches, wound spirals carved deep into the bark. But the resin that seeped out was warm, almost pulsing. Dr. Quinn suggested the symbols were territorial, maybe indigenous. But Holt rejected that. "This is her," he insisted. "She brought something with her." The forest grew denser, closing in. Emery cursed that paths were repeating, looping back into themselves. Then Jacob found another sketch, this one far worse. A rendering of the 5 men, stripped of their faces, kneeling before a towering tree shaped like a human spine. The caption read, "They awakened what they feared." Emery vanished mid-afternoon. One moment he walked 10 yards ahead, the next gone. No snap of branches, no cry, just absence. Jacob called for him. Silas searched. Holt muttered prayers. Dr. Quinn found only one clue, Emery's hat, placed neatly on a stump, as if offered. The stump was bleeding resin. They didn't sleep that night. As tensions rose, Jacob revealed the truth. Maybelle wasn't just an orphan. Pastor Brandt brought her to Ironwood because she fit a prophecy from a banned sermon, one claiming a child of the uprooted would be able to hear the imprisoned entity beneath the forest. She wasn't lost. She was chosen, and the men were not searching for her. They were supposed to stop her from completing something. Holt accused Jacob of betrayal. Silas nearly attacked him. Quinn wrote in his journal, "We have been sent not as her rescuers, but as her jailers. We walk in borrowed lies." The second night, all 4 remaining men reported seeing Maybelle at different spots, sometimes close, sometimes impossibly far. She never spoke. She never blinked. But each vision left behind a whisper that the others could hear. "You came too late." Dr. Quinn confessed the visions felt less like hallucinations and more like memories imprinted on the forest. Silas refused to continue. Holt, driven by religious fervor, threatened Silas at gunpoint, insisting the ritual must be stopped. Jacob sided with Holt. Quinn sided with survival. The group fractured, panic, paranoia, rage. Then the forest seemed to shift again, redirecting paths, forcing all 3 men back toward a massive clearing they'd never seen before. At its center was a sinkhole, deep and circular, lined with ironwood roots. Around it lay Emery's clothing, folded. The ground around the sinkhole vibrated subtly, like a breath being held. Quinn believed something ancient lay beneath, confined by roots that pulsed like veins. Jacob claimed he heard Maybelle calling from inside. Holt warned that was the voice of the imprisoned one, a lure. Silas leaned too close. The soil gave way. He didn't scream on the way down. He only whispered, "I see her." Minutes later, Silas climbed out. No, crawled out, covered in mud as black as coal, shaking violently. His eyes were wrong, dilated, unfocused, reflecting the trees like mirrors. He said Maybelle wasn't in the sinkhole. "She's deeper," he insisted. "And she's not alone." Then he attacked Jacob without warning, screaming words in a language none recognized. Quinn and Holt restrained him, but Silas bit through his own tongue before collapsing. The forest hummed. Holt believed Silas had been claimed, transformed by the imprisoned entity. He began preparing a purification ritual he claimed his ancestors used to bind forest spirits. Jacob accused him of madness. Quinn accused both of denial. But Holt continued, chanting as the trees groaned, an unmistakable sound, like wood in pain. Then the chanting stopped. Holt was gone. Only his Bible remained, pages wet with resin. At dusk, Jacob and Quinn reached a clearing they swore wasn't there before. Maybelle stood in the center, surrounded by ironwood trunks bending inward like ribs. She wasn't frightened. She wasn't trapped. She was waiting. Jacob approached with trembling rage, believing she had caused everything. But Maybelle simply said, "I didn't call it. You did." The ground split open again. From the rupture rose something not seen but sensed, an ancient consciousness, vast and mournful, tired of centuries buried under coerced silence. Its presence slammed into Jacob's mind with a force that shredded reason. He screamed. Quinn fell to his knees, clutching his skull. Maybelle stood calm. The entity seemed to recognize her, her lineage, her history, her suffering inherited from generations uprooted and displaced. She whispered to it, and the forest responded with a collective exhale. By dawn, only Quinn remained. He staggered through the trees, dragging himself with broken fingers, clothes shredded, eyes hollow. He crawled out of the forest and collapsed before the preacher's house. His last words were recorded. She set it free and freed herself. He died with a faint smile. Pastor Brandt declared the search party consumed by natural tragedy. He ordered all records sealed, all journals burned, all testimonies rewritten. Maybelle's existence was erased. But whispers persisted. Loggers who worked near Ironwood said the trees leaned toward them. Children claimed to hear humming beneath the soil. When the academy burned down in 1907, no one rebuilt it. What happened in Ironwood was not a haunting. It was a reckoning, an ancient wound answering centuries of suppression. Maybelle's story was buried because it revealed the truth. The forest was not cursed. It was imprisoned, and she was the first to listen. Even now, hikers claim to hear a voice in the Ironwood groves, faint but patient, whispering through the bark. You came too late.